When you don't take time to look at it through other people's eyes. Take some time and reflect on what you believe in your soul. Cause that is the key to life. You gotta let the negativity go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the What the Fox podcast with your hosts, Lindsay Fox and Amber Ross. Super pumped to be with you today. We've got an amazing guest with us, and I would love, Lindsay, for you to introduce Mr. Jay Tinsley to everyone.
You are so kind, Amber. So Jay is someone I know from Boston, and currently he resides in Phoenix, Arizona. And though he is a financial aid administrator by trade, he fancies himself as a community activist, youth sports coach, and distance runner. And also, I learned through this consultation process that he happens to love Seinfeld. I did not know that about you.
Mm-hmm. Big Seinfeld nerd.
That's good stuff. Okay.
And also he said MCU super nerd. And so can I just tell you the first thing that went through my brain was like Marine Corps University. I felt so damn confused.
What?
That's not it. That's
my
not
ass
it.
Was so confused. Clearly, listen, y'all, I live under a rock whenever it comes to like all the entertainment shit. And I'm sorry. I had no idea what MCU was. Yes.
I worry about you. I worry about you.
I have concerns.
I mean, honestly, that's fair. I've never seen any of those movies or read any of the comics. I'm sorry, guys.
I don't read comics. I'm not that deep into nerds, but I did spend half an hour this morning watching a YouTube breakdown of a trailer for an MCU show that's coming out at some point this year. Like,
okay, so I'm
that level of nerdy.
I was getting ready to ask if you get to classify yourself as a super nerd if you don't actually read the comics, and then you kept talking.
Yeah,
so we're good.
Yeah.
We're good. Go ahead. Continue.
It checks out.
We'll stop that rabbit hole right there.
It checks out. Yeah. First of many today, folks. Stick around.
Yeah, that's true.
So Jay, I know we're really excited to have you here. And what I would love for you and Lindsay to share, because I'm sure that our audience is starting to figure this out. Lindsay meets people in the wildest of situations and just meets the most amazing people in these situations. So I would love for y'all to share, obviously I know, but share how you two met and how your worlds kind of collided. And now we get this opportunity to talk with you.
Why, sure, as Jay turns over to me.
Yeah, Jay's like, I'm not touching that one.
So yes, you are right, Amber. I do meet very random people in the most random situations, and anyone who knows me basically knows this is how my entire life operates. Frankly, it's just how the universe is. There's all kinds of gifts that are there. It's just whether or not we see them. And in this particular case, I was in dire need of a roommate whenever I lived in Boston. And, you know, a point to clarify here is like, this is before like everyone was on the social media bandwagon. But I met Jay on Craigslist.
It was like 2010, 2009.
It was a while back. Yeah. It was a while
back when it was safe to meet strangers on Craigslist.
Unlike
today.
It's never been safe to meet people on Craigslist, and I knew that going into it, and I still said, let me meet this guy Jay and see if I can be his roommate.
Oh my
and
gosh.
So that's actually how we met. And then we decided very quickly that there would be no way in hell that we would be roommates, because I owned too much shit that could not fit into his apartment. So it was nixed pretty quickly. As soon as I saw that spiral staircase or whatever it was, I was like, I can't even get my mattress up here.
Wasn't going to work out.
Yeah, this can't happen.
It's not like these new apartments.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead, Jay.
I was going to say, like, I mean, you know, particularly out here, every apartment complex is new and brand new, like, you know, ADA accessible, all that fun stuff. And this was an old school duplex in Charlestown, Massachusetts, and if you did not have the smallest of furniture, like you couldn't have anything larger than a full-size bed, it wasn't making it into a third floor apartment. So
and I own a lot of random shit, which Amber, you will be helping me declutter soon.
Yes, I will. That is on the calendar. It's gonna happen.
And
so what I'm what I'm most interested in here, like, first of all, kudos to the two of you for like putting yourselves out there via Craigslist back in 2010. I think
that's how you found roommates.
I mean, that's how you find
Honestly,
a lot of things.
Yes, it actually it is true though. That's how you found roommates. And while I did not find my roommate in that situation, I did find a lifelong friend.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'd love to know, like, have you guys stayed consistently in communication over the time period? Or is it just like brand new, all of a sudden you're like, boom, universe brought you right back into my life?
I think it's brand new. Like, I mean, I if I remember correctly, you were out here. We didn't get to connect, but you were out in Arizona at some point shortly after I moved here. We weren't able to connect.
You were right. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, I used to go to Arizona like every year there for a little bit.
It popped up like, on one of my Facebook memories. I was like, oh yeah. But it was this podcast, or not, radio show, whatever. I don't even know what to call it, that I did right before Thanksgiving. And, I just, shared it on social media, and I saw that her name was in there. I was like, oh, that's interesting that she's listening. This is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And she reached out afterwards, said like I sounded kind of smart, which I always appreciate, just
it was
my ego and my head got bigger, and I was like, all right.
Just inflate it a little. No,
I love
and
it.
you're like seriously such a humble person. So, but actually the podcast that he was, or whatever you want to call it, I will call it a podcast for the sake of whatever. But it was actually a very good episode for, I believe it's called BIPOC Raw. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you just kind of like touch on what your presence was about on that show? Like, you did it with your brother. Amber and I have listened to it. It was phenomenal. And as soon as we heard it, I was like, he's got to come on What the Fox.
Well, so it was sort of free flowing in a sense. The core thing that we were asked to speak about, me and my brother, was as Black men raising biracial and multiracial children. But we were sort of given the permission by our aunt, who is one of the co-hosts of the show, to just shoot the shit. And I mean, I don't get to see my brother often. He's in Philadelphia with his family. We don't talk on the phone. We FaceTime every once in a while with the kids, but like, that is the most fun in the world for me, is to be able to just shoot the shit with my brother. I never laugh harder than when we do that. So it was really just enjoyable to talk about life and what it is like to parent in general, what it's like to exist in this world. I mean, obviously there are challenges specific to being a Black man in America or on this planet, but it really was just like life right now, and life as a dad, and life as a husband, all these little aspects that we share right now. So it was really cool.
It was awesome. And honestly, I do encourage, and we can put it in the show notes, but like, that episode I thought was so beautifully, I want to say crafted, but that's just that it really, like, it was just y'all being exactly who you are. Y'all need your own TV show one day. I hope you get it.
Absolutely. I had goosebumps listening to y'all talk with each other, and just seeing the way that you play off of each other, and the way that you are very different humans that exist really well together in a family sense. Like, even if you told me, like, you've just said you don't see him that often, y'all don't hang out that often, you don't talk that often, I couldn't see or feel any of that from your conversation. Y'all seemed like super tight and super thick. It was great.
Yeah, joined for sure.
It always feels like there is a synergy. I mean, we're just about 4 years apart, but like, because of like grade levels, like we were never in the same school all that often. Where we really came together, and this helps, but like, we were sort of adults. I left Boston for a hot minute to move down to Philadelphia when I was 24 and he was 20. And we lived together for about a year and a half. And while there were trials and tribulations associated with that, like, it was really like, hey, we're both kind of adults in similar situations. Like, we worked at the same bar together. We made a lot of the same friends. And it was just like, that was our truest bonding point as adults. And it's just grown from there. Like, we were always close, but that was some of the best time of my life. Definitely. It was like just being around my brother all the time as a grown man and getting to hang out.
Oh yeah,
and getting to fight and argue and all the things as adults.
I mean,
I'm using grown man very loosely. Very loosely.
I got it. I was picking up what you were putting down. I got all that. I saw WWE happening. I saw like all the things. We're good.
I mean, you just see such a different version of each other though as you grow up. So I think that's also, something that just in family dynamics, as we get older, we see each other grow and change, and everything is very fluid. So, as we get older, we hopefully learn to have a better understanding of one another,
One of the coolest things about our relationship is, so he used to visit me at college. He was very close with my core college friends. And he commented at one point, he's like, being close with me and my college friends allowed him to see into the future 4 or 5 years, or whatever. So it's like, all right, what do I want to do when I graduate? Oh, it doesn't really matter that I don't have, my dream career. Like, I really just want to be able to pay my bills and hang out with my friends. And, so he got to see us make the idiot mistakes and a couple of successes here and there, and prepare for it. And then things kind of switched around because he was maybe 22, 23 when he bought his first house. I was still renting at that point. So I got to be like, wow, learn a lot about that process through him. Yeah. He got engaged and married well before I did. So I got to see how that went. He had his first child before I did. So I got to then learn from him and witness a lot of things and sort of see into the future. So
very cool.
It's over the past, I don't even say how many years, but probably 20, 25 years, how our relationship and what we've been able to provide for each other intentionally or unintentionally, has been amazing and has shifted as we moved around.
Yeah, that's cool. And it's nice to see that give and take in that relationship where you can learn from each other, but also educate and encourage one another. I think that's the part of family, whether it's blood or not, that is so useful in society, where you can lean on someone and say, oh, okay, here's how you did it. Well, let me try it this way. Or, ooh, I'm not going to make that mistake. Good call. Thanks. Oh
no,
my
it's
gosh.
True. And I know that, just Jay, you have always been very much a family man. You are just you have seemingly, and what I know about you have always been very much a family man. And I know that when we started talking about this podcast, you had shared someone who kind of influenced some core beliefs in terms of your foundation and how you kind of look at the world, really connected back to your uncle. I'm wondering if you can say a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I have an uncle. I'll keep everyone nameless except for my brother, but and the people in my home. But I have an uncle who he's, I guess, I'd say, I don't know if independently wealthy is the right term, but just took a different path in life and ended up, being relatively well off, and has always been there for family members in need, or just family members in general. He's like, if you ask, I got you. He's really good about that. He doesn't hold anything over anyone's head. He takes care. And there's been incredible. Various points in our life where he has really helped us out in different ways. And been, a father figure at different points. He's just been great with that. Both me and Ben, other people in our family, it's been amazing. And I remember talking to him at one point. I might have been in my mid-20s, and he just said, he's like, I've been very blessed. I've been very fortunate in my life, and I like to do for other people. All I ask is that when you have the opportunity to do for others, that you do it. And I fortunately didn't take that as I have to wait till I get, have some money to be able to do things for you, because it's not necessarily about providing financial resources all the time. It's just doing whatever that looks like for you, so.
Yeah, paying it forward.
Yeah, paying it forward. And again, it's different. I sort of come from a family of this. I couldn't tell you necessarily where it starts, but I know my Nana, my mom's mom, had been, she's passed a couple years ago, but had been anyone who was in need, she would take them into the house. You were part of the family now. You truly felt like you were family. My mom was a teacher for 33 years, I believe. And there were multiple instances when I was a child that a former student of hers who was in need came to stay with us.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know her sisters have done similar things with, and they weren't teachers, but people they were close to that were in need. They've brought them in and taken care of them. And that's, it sometimes blows my mind, but I'm like, wait a second, the whole family did shit like that. That's just how we are,
a family of change makers. That's kind of how I look at it, because that makes a huge difference in a person's life right there.
And, you know, it hasn't always worked out perfectly, but, you know.
We don't believe in perfection.
We don't do perfect.
No, you're right. Like, the best example of it is so I had graduated, I was living in Boston, my brother was in college, and my parents were getting divorced. And my mom she had just started going to church at this point, and there were two kids there who, I mean, it was very clear that they were living in and out of shelters. And she ended up taking the oldest, I think they were 3 and 5 at the time, the sister. She took in the sister. And it was all supposed to be temporary. Then it turned out like, you know, the brother couldn't, you know, stay in the situation either. So she took in the brother. And again, it was all supposed to be temporary. She had temporary custody. I don't even know if it was official anywhere. She never legally adopted anybody.
Right.
But they just became family and stayed with her until they graduated high school, almost like partially through college. Like, that's my little brother and my other little brother, my little sister. Like, and it just, because that's what we do. And again, it wasn't always easy. There was plenty of challenges, but that was what she felt called upon to do that, and she did it, you know.
And arguably, I think that you have felt called upon the same kind of energy. I feel like your energy is very similar in that sense, and that you are a helper and like you're someone that really is big into building communities and building up the underdog, really the person that needs a shirt off their back type of thing. You're going to be the first one to hand it over.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give myself that much credit because I'm very selective about what I do.
Maybe now. maybe now.
What I will say is that, like, because of, I mean, I'm truly blessed in my life right now. I have a wonderful wife. I have 2 wonderful kids. They are incredibly supportive of all the things that help me be me. My extended family, like, same thing. Like, and so I just feel I want to say I don't have any problems. So it's just like, all right, like my
We've all
foundation
got shit.
is steady. So I feel the energy to do other stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and again, like, and I say that because I mean, it's not that we don't have stuff, but by and large, like, my foundation is straight. Like, I don't have home stress.
Yeah.
I don't have kid stress. We're very blessed. We don't have health stress or anything like that. Like, I got a bum knee right now, but like, that's it, you know?
Yeah, life is good.
Life is good. And it has been good for quite some time. So it allows me, it gives me the energy to do more. You know, my mom said it best one time, because once she saw me start, I didn't start really volunteering and getting involved in the community until I moved to Phoenix. And when I was telling her about it, I really didn't. I mean, I just kind of hung out. Like, I mean, I was a decent human being sometimes, but like, I didn't give back to the community in the way. I mean, I would do a finance.
You would take in strangers from Craigslist, but I mean, wasn't
know,
really big in the.
That was rent money, you know. But I got here and I started doing stuff, albeit initially to impress a girl, but I started doing stuff and continued to do stuff. And my mom said to me, she's like, you know, I always wanted you to be more involved. And I was like, yeah, it's just, but in Boston, I didn't have, like, I mean, I had great friends and stuff like that, but like, the foundation of my life wasn't as sturdy.
Yeah.
You know,
well, and I think that's what your uncle meant when he said, when you have the opportunity, then you give back. Like, your house kind of has to have a solid foundation for you to be able to give meaningful help to others and have those opportunities and have the energy to have those opportunities.
Right. You can't pour from an empty cup. So, you know, you got to fill your soul first before you start giving out to others.
Yeah. So I feel like there's a really common theme in your family that is a helpful social construct in this case of being the helper and being that safe space for people when they have trouble. My question is, how has that played out since you've been in Phoenix? Because my understanding from what you shared in your interview with your brother, you've had an opportunity to make kind of a big difference in your area.
Yeah.
So I guess it's manifested in a couple of ways. When I first moved out here, I was fortunate enough to work for an organization that had a community service relations department.
Oh,
so they worked really hard to partner with different organizations throughout the valley, throughout the country actually, because it was University of Phoenix, so it was everywhere. And regularly posted opportunities in which you could volunteer. So the first thing I did was get involved with the Boys and Girls Club. I started coaching baseball and basketball, which was awesome. Essentially, I think it was 7 through 10-year-olds. That definitely prepared me for kids a little bit.
I was gonna say, was this pre-kids? Because
this was pre-kids. I actually stopped once my when my son was about to be born, because it was taking up a lot of time. Like my wife, and my wife, she was started off as girlfriend, obviously, and fiance, then wife, but she had always been supportive of it. But there was nights where I had to be gone because I had stuff going on. And then for whatever reason, I always had really good basketball teams, and we'd go into playoffs, and we got to play championship games at the same arena that the Suns played. It was really, really cool.
Wow. That's awesome.
Couldn't not do it, obviously. But I knew that I was going to stop, because I wanted to be a dad. I wanted to, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, so I needed to pour all of that energy into my kids. And they sucked the life out of me. Just kidding.
Hey, look, I've got two of my own. I know it's what they do. It's why they have so much energy.
They're so good at it.
Leeches. But
we love our children. We do.
They're amazing. Blessings. Another thing that I did was there's an organization out here called, I think they have it all over the country too. It's called Boys Hope, Girls Hope. But they partnered me with a young man that I had provided mentorship with. So when we started, I think he was 12. He'll be 21 in July.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I've watched this man now grow up. And again, it was just, he didn't, honestly, I know other kids in the program needed adult mentorship. He didn't. He was always a really thoughtful kid. He was he was one of the prizes of the program. But now we're just friends, and we hang out occasionally, and he does seek out advice here and there, and I talk to him more as a friend and someone who is twice his age and has gone through some stuff, as opposed to dude, you need to get your shit together, man. You need to stay in school. It's no, you're a grown man. You got to make your own decisions. Here's what I have seen be the result of those decisions. But you are also more thoughtful, brighter, stronger than I was at that age. So you might have an entirely different outcome. And he has thus far. It's been an amazing relationship. And then I think it was 2015, I finally got sick of getting in fights with people on the internet about police brutality.
You mean it wasn't a really effective way to instill change?
No, apparently that is just not how that's going to go down.
You're kidding.
Oh, good to know. Thanks.
Yeah, who'd have thought, right?
I know.
So,
I know people. It's the people that respond online. They just want to bitch and complain. God. They don't want to be woken up.
I was doing a lot of bitching and complaining, but I went onto the City of Phoenix website, looked, was all right, what's on here? And I took a lot of digging because the website is crap. But I found that the department had advisory boards for different underrepresented groups throughout the valley. So, there's African American advisory group, the Hispanic advisory group, Cross Disability advisory group, the Sikh advisory group. I think there's 12 of them, but various communities, and they all came about for different reasons. But I joined that, and that was a great opportunity to get to know other leaders of color in the community, as well as build my comfort level with law enforcement. I used to be a person who do tip a cop events at Starbucks, and they have, for whatever reason, the SWAT vehicle lined up there, all the, SWAT cars, cops hanging out. And I'm just oh shit. I'm just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And now I see a cop out there, directing traffic. I'll go up and dap him up because I'm more comfortable now. I built my problem.
So just to kind of take pause for just a moment here.
What I'm hearing.
No. I mean, you're a fantastic storyteller, and that's, we want you to tell them all. But what I'm hearing you say, because I think it is important for other people to hear that, is the fact that you initially were someone that really engaged in a lot of the back and forth banter online on social media. You were seeing you really weren't getting anywhere in that sense, but were kind of feeling defeated. like, what the hell, people, So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's really what I see happen a lot. And I hear a lot of people talk about it as well. It's just like, which is really the origins of how this podcast came about, frankly.
Yeah.
It's like just getting fed up with the fact that you're seeing the same shit repeat itself. And so at some point you were like, I'm done with this piece. Let me go out into the real world outside of behind the screen and see what can I do to make a difference and see what is out there where I can support my community.
Don't talk about it, be about it.
That's right.
No. And again, I'm not saying that I'm doing anything crazy or amazing. I haven't changed the world by any means, but it was like,
But hey, wait a minute.
let me
I would
put some
disagree.
action behind my words.
Again,
like,
he
let me do
minimizes.
something.
Jay, you minimize your. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep bringing this back, but you feel me, Amber?
I'm
Yeah.
going to disagree because I think you've changed the world in ways that you haven't yet recognized. I mean, your involvement with Boys and Girls Club, your involvement in these kids' lives, your involvement as a coach in sporting events, like these are big things that are impressionable moments for kids. And those kids go out to lead lives that affect other people. So like, don't minimize your impact on that and how you're shaping them to do more good things like you've done.
Yep.
So
and also
I'll make
being a
No, go.
I was gonna say also just being a Black man, as fulfilling these roles, I think is also incredibly powerful. It is incredibly powerful for today's youth to see that and to experience that, because that's something that you're contributing in a way where you're producing a new narrative that maybe these kids have not seen or experienced before.
Absolutely.
The parallel I would make, it's like sort of like parenting. Don't know that, like, when do you find out that you've been a successful parent? Like, unless you're identifying little benchmarks along the way, which it's tough because you're like, oh, you're really sweet today. Tomorrow you're an asshole. Like, I don't, when do I know that I've been successful?
I mean,
I could have a 30, my kid could be 35 and also be a dick. Like, I mean, it's like, is that my fault? Like, but I know I'm going to feel like it's my fault. So I don't know. I mean, I think I appreciate y'all saying that, but I think it is hard to recognize and acknowledge like the impact you're having, because you're playing the long game here, to your point. Like, I don't really know. I'm hoping that those efforts come to fruition in very wonderful ways. You just don't know. And I will likely never see it myself. Someone else will hopefully feel the benefits of it.
True. Yeah, you may not, but like I think back to the stories you shared of like your mom taking people in and like the history of your family being the helpers and being the people to create change. Like you're continuing that legacy. So know it's going to pay out. Like you've seen that story play. You know how it's going to play out. Like, you know what your kids are going to do. You know what I'm saying?
Look at him. I think he's blushing.
I do think he's blushing. It's under the facial hair a little bit, but he's blushing. Oh okay.
Gosh.
Cover it up with a soda can.
Okay.
Moving on. We'll stop making you blush for a moment, Jay. But I feel like one of the key points that you and your brother were talking about in your interview, and I know we keep coming back to that, but it was such a meaningful like insight into the way your brains work, is the key that we need to progress as a society. And everything you're telling me about your story and that you're sharing with us today, you're showing people how that progression happens and how, okay, yeah, I didn't make any difference sitting at a keyboard. So instead of just locking myself in my house and being angry with the world, I'm going to go out and I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to learn how to be comfortable with the people in my community. I'm going to help educate them in areas that they're ignorant right now. More,
yes, you're exactly
right. It is what it is, right?
Yeah.
So keep going with that and your experience in being on that board and what that has meant to you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's meant a lot. I mean, I feel a deeper connection to this city. We were talking before, like a lot of people, I mean, I'm from New York. I still, at this point, have spent most of my life on Long Island, but most people associate me with Boston. But at this point, I have now lived in Phoenix longer than I've lived anywhere but my childhood home. This is my community, and working with the police department has helped to strengthen that connection with the community. And partially, I mean, again, I don't know if I'm seeing it. I don't know how much of an influence I personally have had, but like I am directly involved in trying to improve people's lives in the community. So it really has helped with that connection. It's provided me additional perspective and insight as it relates to law enforcement and the challenges that they face across the board. I mean, obviously, I don't know everything, but perspective helps. Like, just as like I try to provide people with at least my perspective of what it's like to be a Black man in this country, it's just as important to get perspective like what it's like to be a police officer in this country in different neighborhoods, what it's like to be a Black police officer on the force, going back to your Black community, in your family and stuff like that. Like everyone's perspective has value. And that's like being able to witness that, listen to conversations, go through training.
There's a lot of power
Citizens
in that.
Police Academy, like it gave me perspective, but also informed my criticisms. Having a better understanding of how policies are developed. Having a better understanding of how policies are developed and the approaches they take, and even simple things. I've listened to stories. Again, I mostly work with the Community Engagement Bureau, who are specifically trained to deal with people well. Like I don't see beat cops all that much, and I imagine their experience is a little bit different. SWAT's a little bit different. Homicide's different. Like I get it. It's just like teachers. Like I wouldn't expect a kindergarten teacher to be able to go into high school class and handle it the same way. Their jobs are very specific. They get very specific training.
Yeah.
But I remember talking to, she was the lieutenant, but I asked her, I was like, how do you guys deal with situations when you go in and like something horrible's happened? And she was very honest. She's like, honestly, and she's like, this is horrible, but you sort of have to desensitize yourself to it. And there's been times where I've sort of callously walked past a crying, like family member of a victim because I was so focused on the job that I need to do. And also because to protect her peace, she's got to block out some of that darkness.
Well, this is where the mental health side of me is going like, hello.
Yeah, red flag.
Honestly, this is a huge conversation I would love to dive into. And I don't know how much time we've got today to go down that rabbit hole. It could be a totally separate episode.
We need to put that one in its own episode, I think.
Yeah. But I honestly, but I'll just leave it at this. It's just the fact that I think what I'm hearing you comment on and the sense of awareness that you were coming into within this role is how much trauma exists in both worlds. In your community as a Black man and people of color in your community, there's a lot of trauma, deep-rooted trauma going on. When you mix that also and look at the law enforcement side, you see, you're not necessarily a hero by society standards if you identify as having, PTSD, say, right? Yeah. We really want to minimize the mental health aspect of things and these heroic roles. So it doesn't get talked about in law enforcement. However, that trauma is a huge piece of where that fight, flight, or freeze response goes off. So, these officers and what have you, there's that amygdala going off that triggers that fight response at times where maybe it's not an appropriate response. And likewise on the other end. So, it's just, there's a lot of trauma that goes on with that. So I am actually very, very interested in hearing you kind of say a little bit more about the perspective and insights that maybe you were able to add to the Phoenix Police Department by serving in the role that you did at that time. I mean, maybe it didn't seem like a big deal at that time in that moment, but maybe in hindsight, now that hindsight's always 20/20, but is there any kind of pivotal moment or anything that you can kind of reflect on where you're like, I feel like even if it was a small little moving of the needle, just a little bit, that you contributed in that sense?
So, I don't know if I've made that sort of large scale contribution, but I will say that, it's the process is different right now, but they used to, as the Phoenix Police Department was trying to increase their transparency, they would bring in a group of citizens to review some of their critical incidents. And we essentially would sit in their primary conference room with the chief and, assistant chiefs and stuff like that, and review the raw footage of
like the
incidents that went down.
debriefing, like the CIS.
Yeah, but like totally raw, like all the brand information that that they have. And
wow.
I mean, it's jarring. I mean, here I am just watching it like it's a movie, hearing gunshots, seeing somebody fall to the ground, like it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm just doing this through a screen. So I can only imagine. But I remember a particular incident where a gentleman was essentially holding up a gas station, and the cops went in. It wasn't everything moves very quickly, so it wasn't clear whether or not all these civilians had been cleared out. But one of the things I really appreciated and made note of in this meeting, as we were talking about, like, all right, well, how officers respond to these situations, was the language that one of the officers, at least, was using to address the person in distress. I like to call them now. Like, I don't want to say a crazy person in distress. This person was having an issue.
Yeah.
And he was just like, buddy, dude, like all these like friendly terms, not like motherfucker, put down the gun. Like, he didn't like, that would elicit a very different response. Like,
you're absolutely
really
right.
trying to connect with this human being in this, like, as comfortable as a way as you really could. Like, and I thought that was important. Like, and you don't always hear that. We've had, I mean, the most famous Phoenix police incidences was, I think it was 2019, probably. I mean, it was a dollar store incident. And apparently, allegedly, a little black girl had taken a doll from a dollar store. The owner of the dollar store called the cops. 6 squad cars rolled up to this family's apartment complex, and they were screaming bloody murder, pointing their guns at the pregnant mom, holding I'm getting like the husband or the father. And it was just like, Jesus Christ, guys! Like, again, crime is crime, but like, also, what the fuck? Like, this, and the language that was used, it was just absurd. It was absurd. Like, there was no reason for 6 squad cars to pull up anyway. Like, there's a whole lot of things here, but like, just talking about specifically the language that was used.
Yeah.
And fortunately, that situation didn't escalate to the point where anyone got shot.
Oh my God!
Like,
but you can
why
see
are you
where
using that language?
Oh my gosh!
Ironically, in the situation with the positive language, like they end up shooting the individual. He did have a weapon. It was still a lot of interesting things going on there, but like, again, I really appreciated, like, the attempt was to de-escalate the situation.
Yeah.
And it was very clear in the language that was using how they were addressing this gentleman. Like, our goal is to de-escalate. Yeah. And that was, I mean, I made sure to call that out. Again, we're looking for, like, what do we think about this? Yada, yada, yada. Do we think that, the officer did anything wrong? And I was like, I did not know enough at that point I didn't know all the laws and statutes and whatnot then, but I was like, well, I really did appreciate the language he used in trying to address this gentleman.
When it's that human component, it's that realization that even in a state of distress, we are all humans and we are operating in whatever capacity we're able to. Obviously, you have to be dealing with some deep-rooted issues to hold up a gas station, right? Like, you're not in your right mind. And I'm not dismissing that situation. That doesn't make it right. It doesn't dismiss it, but the human component is so often left out of the news media reports, what we read online and how people are approaching the situations. Just to take it back to like the arguments online, the human component gets overlooked, and the fact that we are all people operating in the best capacity we can in that general moment.
This is true. And, in the same breath, I absolutely believe our law enforcement, nationwide absolutely could use extensive training, more grants and funding toward, educating law enforcement around mental health conditions,
Yeah.
how to respond to certain mental health conditions, not to turn, law enforcement officers into mental health professionals, but just to educate, for instance, like how maybe an individual with bipolar disorder that's unmedicated, how they present and how to assess
Yeah.
the threat through a mental health lens.
Yeah.
Your response is going to be exponentially, I think, obviously a lot of context matters, right? Variables matter.
Context always
So,
matters.
right.
Yes.
So like, I get that. But I mean, I think an officer's response could be very different if they had some additional training and education on some of these pieces. And
Well, and
likewise,
go ahead.
likewise within, as we talk about race as well, that's another piece, is understanding the layers of generational traumas that feed into this, that you might be seeing certain responses by individuals or people of color where there is a lot of confusion on like when to feel safe and when to feel unsafe within this person that has this role as a protector in the community. That's what, sorry. I mean, I'm telling you, I could go really deep.
No, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I would take it a step further that as a society as a whole, we do a very poor job educating any people on mental health. Like, we have a responsibility as family members, as friends, as neighbors, to be able to help those people and identify like, hey, something's up here. Like, we need to raise a red flag, raise an alarm. In movies, it's kind of overplayed having an intervention, but like, somebody has to have eyes on a situation to know like when to raise that red flag so that it doesn't get to a point where someone is standing in a gas station with a gun so often. I mean, you can't, that's not going to prevent all scenarios, but we can all do a little bit.
Yeah, this problem is obviously not specific to law enforcement. This is a societal issue.
No.
It's a community issue. Like the one incident that sticks out in my head the most is my wife has become very well acquainted with the non-emergency line for the police. Most people don't know that exists. We've been.
You're right.
911 is ingrained in our minds. That's all we know.
Yes, it is.
911. 911 is the emergency number, but people call that for everything. But it was, I don't even know when it was, but there was a shirtless brother out, and we lived like right off of a main street, and he was sort of wandering in and out of it. And clearly something wasn't right. So my wife was a little bit nervous. I was as nervous. She's like, should I call the police? And I was like, no, because I was more nervous for this gentleman. And I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. She's like, well, I'll call the 9 emergency line, which I appreciate because she's very well acquainted with that number. She's like, and I was like, that makes more sense. It's not an emergency. Call the 9 emergency line.
Yeah.
So she's trying to describe to the dispatch what was going on. I knew she was trying to think of the words to use. And I was like, he's in distress. Don't say that this man is out there acting crazy. He hasn't done anything to us. Like, he is in distress. That means he needs help.
That's right.
He's not hurting anyone. He needs
power of
help.
language, man. The
power
of language. It makes a big difference. Yeah.
It makes a big difference, but that's not, I mean, we are obviously very thoughtful about this very specific thing. Most people they're going to drive by in their car and be like, all right, this guy acting crazy, black guy, he's got no shirt on. Like, that's what dispatch hears.
Yeah.
However, they translate it over to, the officers. Like, and situations can get out of hand. Like, if you're an officer and you hear that, obviously you collect new information as you get there. But as we've seen in videos, as I've reviewed critical incident reports, the shit goes down real quick.
Yeah.
Real quick.
Yeah.
And there have been many, I haven't seen too many in which I was like, that officer, like, they completely did the wrong thing. Like, it happened very quick. And what I saw, like, I would have probably responded in a similar fashion. Again, the preceding events, a lot of that shit can change. You pull up your car, not as closely. All these different things that could have changed. The sliding doors. It's like, it's like, all right, what if we did this? What if we did this? Obviously, but in the moment when shit goes down, like many of the ones that I've seen, I'm like, that sucked. So how do we not let it get to that point?
Exactly.
And it is obviously, law enforcement has a very large role because they're there at the end oftentimes.
Yeah.
But it's dispatch. it's a community at large and how we talk. It's what other services are provided. Like somebody, I mean, so I'm no longer the chair of the African American Advisory Board. There's a new chair now, and he's a former law enforcement. He works for a different organization now. So he has it's a helpful perspective. He has more information. But we were talking recently about why, for mental health issues, why isn't the fire department sent? Like, they do more medical type stuff anyway. Wow. Everyone loves firefighters. Like, why are we not? Why isn't dispatch? Like, why does this go to the police? And it's, again, I know firefighters are busy as well, but like, you got EMTs and shit in there. Like, why don't they go to these incidences? This doesn't make any sense. Why are we sending cops with guns? Like, unless you said this person has a gun and is legitimately acting crazy, like, why are we not sending the folks who, one, we as a community all view as, I mean, I don't know if there's any community that's like firefighters are bad. Like they come in. That's just not how we think about it. Not to mention,
there's a lot of, I lived in Grafton, Massachusetts for a period of time, and that entire community is run by volunteer firefighters. Volunteers. They don't have weapons, right? They're all volunteers. So it's like, what do I think you're bringing up a good point in the sense that, and maybe firefighters listening are like, oh, hell no, don't give us that. No, I don't want that.
I'm
they're
sure
like,
their union would be like,
like, don't put that on me.
Well, shit, if you go to a building on fire and shit, like, you can help out someone like, so. But it's funny, like, I don't know who made the decision initially to be like, no, crazy people, we got to send the cops.
Well, and it's interesting. It's one of those, I'm going to use the word again, social constructs, right? Like, we've just always done it this way, so we continue to do it this way. But at what point do we reevaluate our decision and say, okay, let's try something different? Like, let's bring in more help. Let's bring in a different perspective. And I love, I'm wondering, like, what kind of advisory boards exist around my area like that, and kind of what work is being done here, because I don't have visibility into that yet, but I'm learning through this podcast that there's lots of areas that I could lend a helping hand or, connect dots. So I appreciate you sharing that information, Jay.
And also, just on that note, I think there's a lot that people don't realize in terms of everyday things that they can do to make a difference in this, I guess, sector, would be even just like local municipalities. I mean, there are town meetings or city council. There are things that people can attend meetings or vote on things or put their name out there. And honestly, for the most part, it's like, well, yeah, I don't have a babysitter, or I'm tired and the meeting's at 7 p.m. I don't want to go. So like things like that are also ways that you can like actually start to learn what's going down in your community.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, and we don't have to like stay too long on this particular topic, but I'm just a little intrigued. So I want to poke
now
a little.
I'm worried.
Okay. All right.
Now I'm concerned.
Jay, you said like through this process and serving in this role that you really learned a little bit more about what goes down behind the scenes, in the sense of, wait a minute, there are like structural issues or like systemic issues or policies or laws or things that might hinder XYZ from happening. Now I understand maybe why this is taking place in the way that it is. And so, I think that this is an excellent point, because I worked in a very political role previously. And I remember having some aha moments like that myself, really, because I didn't understand how much small little systemic things can like be like the stick in the middle of like a bicycle wheel. It just like shuts down everything. And so I'm curious, in your experience, what's kind of like the most surprising thing that you've learned about the behind the scenes, like whether it be laws or policies or things that like has been most surprising / eye-opening, where you're like, oh shit, that definitely plays into this?
Yeah. So this will sort of highlight two pieces of that. City of Phoenix, at least, there is if there's a critical incident, it's not always just an officer-involved shooting, or not. I don't know if it's always just a use of force either, but critical incidents, there is officer gets due process, appropriately so. There's a use of force review, So they have panels, which are made up of, there's some law enforcement on there, but there's also like citizens on that panel to review the situation. They collect all the information. I mean, it's a lot of documentation. You watch the videos, stuff like that, to determine whether or not within policies and the, Arizona statute, that use of force was used correctly. If it's determined that it was not, then there's a disciplinary review board. And they review, all right, well, the officer did not do the right thing. Like, what should the discipline be? And at least in Phoenix, that information, the chief will look at that information and make a determination of what sort of discipline she will hand down. My understanding is that by and large, she's like, the board said this, I'm going to go with this. And, she can terminate an officer. But these are, civil employees. So there is a civil review board within the city of Phoenix that then reviews it, and they can overturn that termination.
Especially
now,
if you have unions involved.
Oh yeah, the union is absolutely involved. And again, I'm pro-union, so everyone, whatever. But imagine being an officer who says, "I don't think this was right." They tell their sergeant tells whoever, like, and goes through all the boards, and chief is like, "Yeah, we got to fire that dude." And then the city's just like, "Nah, hire him back." Like, what does that tell everyone else? Like, you had all these people within the ranks saying, "This dude's got to go," and then the city's like, "No, you go back."
Like, we've spotted a bad apple, and we have to now.
Where do you want me to put him now? Like, what do we do?
Right.
Like,
so what do you get? Desk duty?
So there's that piece, but what the systemic thing, and this is, I'm not going to call myself a conspiracy theorist. I just, I know how things work. I'm a citizens member, the use of force review board. I think they have different names now, disciplinary review board. So I'm on those, so I can get called to review the case, mobile, and give mine. I've only done one for City of Phoenix thus far. The training was like half a day on a Saturday. The one I had to do was, I had to go down to City Hall and like get locked in a room because all like private information and whatnot for like 2 hours in the middle of the day. Like, I had a flexible job, so I could do that. When I went to the training, I think there was like 60, 70 of us. There were like 6 people that looked like me. Most of them were old white people. Because you know who has the time? Be spending 4 hours on their Saturday morning or 2 hours in the middle of a day to do this shit? Or what? Retired white people?
Right.
Which, again, there's nothing wrong with old retired white people.
This is a great point,
That's a very specific, it's a very specific perspective that they might be coming from, as opposed to mine.
You spot on, because how many people, when you think about the setup, right, in terms of just minorities as a whole, and socioeconomic status and access to resources and the jobs and education. So I'm sorry, maybe you've got a 9-to-5 job you can't take off that day, or you don't have paid time off, or you needed that for your kid who needed a doctor's appointment, so you can't participate in this community thing.
There's a variety of reasons.
There's a whole trickle down effect going on with all that.
Even most recently, like all these, the fact that they have these civilian representation is great, but again, like, you have that piece. Recently, I think a statute went into place January 1, 2021. But anyone on these boards now needs, I think it was 80 hours of training.
Oh my God!
That's
which again, there's a lot of information that's useful for this, but like, who's got 80 hours worth of time to do this shit?
Right.
Yeah.
It weeds out who can qualify to help. And then it keeps
I imagine
everyone
there
in
was a
silo.
city councilman, I won't name names, who's like, I don't like any of this. Like, no, we need to make this. It's like voter suppression, type shit.
Yes.
Like, we'll figure it out. Like, all right, y'all want this? We're just going to make it more difficult.
There's a way, right?
Yeah.
There's a will, there's a way. But you're right. It keeps people in silos. And it's just like, this is how we keep segregating and dividing people. Because it is something that I personally get upset about, because you're absolutely right. There's voices that are not being heard in the community that is being directly affected. So I think it's honestly, I think it's amazing that you've been able to contribute your time and energy to something like this, because I would argue, and I know that you kind of keep it low key, but I would argue you have made a difference. I would argue that you have contributed in ways that the community hasn't seen or received before. So I think that's really cool. And if I remember correctly, all of this kind of coincided with the birth of your son.
Yeah,
right?
pretty much. It was,
Because that's heavy.
Things,
I mean, that's kind of like a
things just
heavy
kind of mattered more
coinciding.
then.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, and I've made this comment to people before, like my kids, for all intent purposes, well, my son especially looks white. He's got very light skin. He's got blue eyes and blonde hair.
So white passing.
Yeah, incredibly white passing. Daughter, not as much, but Mariano definitely white passing. So I don't like when people talk about the fears that Black moms and Black dads feel about their kids being out there and stuff like that. Like, I can't say that I feel the same way. I can't, because you know what? He's very much white passing.
So
that said, like, his dad spends a lot of time running out in the dark with dark clothes on, like in a predominantly white neighborhood. Like, he will be fearful for me.
Yeah.
So all this still matters. Like, obviously I care about myself very much, but I also have a family that loves me dearly, and I don't want them to be without, because that will crush them. So I need to do what I need to do. Honestly, like getting involved with the boards, like it was self-serving in the first place, because again, I'm running around out there in the dark. I need the police to know my ass. All right.
Right.
Okay?
Yes. And
oh, that's Jay. We're good. We're good
about that. It's just
so
it's just, you're right. And I'm sorry that it has to be that way.
I know. Not to just diminish that feeling, but it's a lot of shit we don't have to worry about. Like, I run, like, I know I run early in the morning. I do see women out there. I give them a wide berth because I know that they have a very specific set of fears when they're running in the dark. Anytime, but that's the dark. So I'm just like, I got bright lights on me and shit. Once the cars can see me and stuff like that. But like, hey, I'm known. I'm out here. Not trying to be creepy. Like, all right, see you later. Like, I run past them. Like, give a wide berth.
Crazy black man.
Because I know
don't be scared.
They have fears.
Yeah.
And legitimately so about being out in the dark and running. And they should be able to be out in the dark and run. They should be able to.
And so should you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so should you.
100% yes. And that was one of the things I took in my notes from your other call, was that freedom is to live without fear. And I think that so many of us, like, we're just not there yet. Yeah. But like, I put that yet in that sentence for a reason, because we all have a responsibility to help the community get there. And we have, doing the work that you're doing, bringing up hard conversations, showing up and being a presence, while is uncomfortable and is hard work and shouldn't be your responsibility to shoulder for the whole world. Like, kudos to you for doing the work and being willing to put yourself in that situation. And you kind of, again, tried to diminish it a little bit by saying it was self-serving. That doesn't make it bad. Just because it benefits you doesn't make it a bad thing. Like,
it sounds like you're keeping yourself safe, right?
Yes.
In a productive way, but in its essence and in its core and the primal response of how we operate as human beings, you found a really strategic and clever way to stay safe. Yeah. And so again, when I keep linking this back to trauma and generational trauma and kind of seeing oh my goodness, I could go on and on about some aspects of this, but like, it's just, there's a human element to this where it's like, we strive as humans for safety. We seek safety, and we try to do that in the best way that we know how. And Jay, in your world, you were gifted a really solid foundation to see what safety looked like.
Yes.
You had it role modeled in a way that was so powerful and helpful and healthy that you've been able to now, live out your life that way and role model it for other people, whether it be through the Boys and Girls Club, through coaching, through your own children. So that's why I keep coming back to, like, I would argue you probably have made a huge difference, and even now with you being a father, it's something that you had commented on prior to us like recording, was just kind of like learning and getting more involved with like the school district aspect. Now that you have children, right? Administration, how do policies and things go down in terms of the school world, and what are my children's needs, and how can I help my children get those needs met and stay safe?
Yeah.
When I feel like my biggest takeaway here is like, my impression of you, obviously I don't know you that well yet, but you see a problem and you immediately start to figure out what you can do to help impact change. Like, it's not, you don't just accept that things are the way they are and we have to deal with them the way they are. You insert yourself and immediately you're like, okay, what's the work that needs to be done? Like, how do we fix this situation? And you educate yourself and you like,
complacency is not in your,
no,
you're definitely not complacent.
This one does not accept societal norms. I like it. It's very good. Now, I want to mention, because I know we've been chatting for a while, we've covered a variety of topics, but you are a runner. You're an avid runner and you run as a part of an organization. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about that with our audience.
Yes, I am a runner. I have been, it's funny, people ask me, they go, oh, did you run track in high school? I was like, no, I played baseball and I was a very chunky individual. I didn't really start working on getting in better shape until after I graduated. I think me and my college girlfriend had broken up and I was like, I'd like to get some more girlfriends. So we should probably get into better shape.
Gosh,
it's all
I love how the volunteer stuff, the physical.
It all comes down to women.
It does. It all comes back to women. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean all the things. Like I try to make sure I give my family, but specifically my wife, a lot of credit for like me being able to do the things I do. Even like the complacency. Like there are certain, as you were saying, there's certain things that I'm just like, whatever, I'm not going to worry about. But it's probably because I don't, because she jumps on that shit.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain shit she will not let fly. So I get to like dive head on into mine, and she supports me, and she dives head on into hers, and I support her, and like thing. So I don't. I mean, I'm sitting. I'm like, wow, I don't even worry about that. I'm like, because I don't have to, because my wife is worried about it, and she's going to make a change there. You know, and
you're operating in your gifts. That's great.
Yeah,
like that's the way
power couple
this
right there. Yeah, that's an awesome thing.
Listen to the woman.
Can you say that again, please? No, I'm kidding.
But yeah, so I am a runner. I have been, once I was able to get in shape to run, I haven't stopped. I'd say about 15 years now, but I just would run casually. It was just a part of I mean, I probably was some mental health components in there. I didn't acknowledge it at the time.
Yep.
But I lived in Boston.
Endorphins? I mean,
it's
a great way to change.
It's a thing,
It's a thing, all right.
It's a thing. And I ran when I first moved here, and plenty, but just running to stay in shape. And it's funny how the things kind of come together. Like I made it a concerted effort once when my son was about to be born. I was like, I have to get in better shape. Like my dad passed at 55, and granted, he led a much less healthy life than I did or ever did. But I was like, all right, I felt like I was having kids later. So I was like, well, I want to be around longer. Like I got to get in shape. And then the timing of this is perfect because we just had Phoenix just hosted the rock and roll marathon race series. So there's marathon, half marathon, stuff like that. So I had some friends who January 2017 convinced me to run the rock and roll half marathon. And I ran it.
Love that.
A good time. Like I ran a good time. I was hurting afterwards, but I was like, all right, I can do this. So I was like, I don't want to do this ever again. Like racing's not my thing. I just want to run. But I was watching.
Have a shared connection in this already, just so you know.
But I was watching the news. I think after I got home, and they were showing some clips from it, and I saw a clip of like towards the end of the race, an old white man had fallen, and a brother picked him up and helped him across the finish line, and he was wearing a Black Men Run T-shirt, and I was like, what the hell is that? So I Googled it and found out that it was a international organization at this point named Black Men Run. And there was a Phoenix chapter. So that month, 5 years ago, I started meeting up with them. And it was a small group at that point, but they would do laps around Tempe Town Lake and meet every 2 weeks. And I've been with them ever since.
That's awesome.
The group has grown. Phoenix chapter, the organization as a whole has grown. International now. We have one in London and Paris and Okinawa.
Impressive.
There's 5 in North Carolina. That's our biggest state.
Wow.
But the organization, the goal is to promote a healthy brotherhood and general wellness for African American males through running, jogging, general movement. It's very clear in society. It's very clear in this country that African American males have very specific health issues, and many of us aren't doing the things we need to do to, help to alleviate some of those issues. So that's the primary goal of the organization. I mean, obviously, it is geared towards African American males, but it is incredibly inclusive. We have a lot of white folks that join our runs. We partner with the Phoenix running community is incredible, very supportive, very inclusive. So we partner with a lot of other running groups. In fact, tomorrow we are having our 5-year anniversary celebration, and there's a local sneaker store that's hosting us.
Oh, very
We have
cool.
Lululemon is providing us with gift certificates to raffle off.
Oh, that's awesome.
Saucony, which is an official partner for Blackman Run. I'm
Wow.
finding out about COVID restrictions right now, or a positive test right now, but I'm hoping
I
that
was
our
gonna
Saucony
say,
rep's
you
going to
guys
come
stay
out.
safe.
Yeah,
Stay
yeah.
safe.
I mean, fortunately, we get to spend a lot of time outside, but apparently
Yeah.
Omicron does not care about that. So,
Yeah.
but,
right
yeah,
about that.
yeah.
About that. Yeah. No.
It's just we have a lot of amazing partners out here, and the senior leadership team of Blackman Run is very supportive of, like, while we have national partners, very supportive of each individual chapter, like finding relationships within our communities to like help promote this message.
That's awesome.
So I mean, our group looks very different than the Raleigh group or the Atlanta group, and like we're all doing different things, but at the end of the day, we're just running.
Right.
It's the easiest thing to do.
Oh my
That's
gosh, you're
right.
doing so much more than that, though, from a mental health standpoint, from a cardiovascular health standpoint. Like that is big stuff. And as someone who always said, if you see me running, someone is chasing me, to now someone who runs for fun, albeit slowly. There is something about running, about jogging, about being outside that is specifically very good for your brain. And I haven't had the opportunity to really do that in groups of people because I didn't pick up running until pandemic life kind of hit full force. But just, I had goosebumps you sharing with me about that community and that brotherhood that you're building with these other runners, where you have that common foundation of wanting to make yourself healthier so that you're around for your kids. Like that spoke to all my heartstrings. So I appreciate you sharing that.
I mean, the fellowship that I have found, I mean, specifically within Blackman Run, but also like the running community in general has been amazing. Like it filled up my heart on Monday. We had one, we've done it the past couple of years, except for last year because nothing happened, but there's a high school, the Franklin Police and Fire High School. They train kids to do the MLK Torch Run every year. And this group of kids, they run with this heavy ass, hot ass, boiling oil pouring out of it torch.
Wow.
2.5 miles to the destination. So we've run with them and could support them in previous years. And this year we did it again and we got a lot of the brothers out there. It was great. We somehow ended up like with the mayor of Phoenix in a picture and speeches and stuff like that. I wasn't expecting that, so it's kind of awkward. But
not awesome, just awkward.
Yeah, I expected you to say awesome when
it was cool.
Out,
I'm still waiting for like better pictures because I was ended up right behind her. So I'm like, oh damn, like I'm gonna be in every piece of media about this. But wearing my Blackman Run t-shirt, so free promotion.
That's all right. Yeah. That's all right. That's how you found out about it, right?
Somebody's gonna sit there and like, what the hell's that? Oh, word, let me find out.
Yeah.
But so we did the run, and then there's a MLK March, and then there's an MLK Festival. And as a part of the African American Advisory Board, I was helping to set up our table with Phoenix Police Recruiting for the festival. So I was there, and I still had on my Blackman Run gear, and I'm walking around, and a black mom came up to me. I don't know how old she was, but I want to say black mom because she gave me all my mom feels.
Oh.
She's like, oh, I know Blackman Run. My son does that. I'm like, oh, where? She's like, Seattle. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. What's his name? She told me his name. And then she got really excited about it. Like, he's such a big runner. Like he's doing so many great things. He does all the Blackman Run gears. Like, you got to come to my car. I got to get my phone. I got to show you pictures of him. So we went to her car, showed me all his Facebook pictures and his. And I was like, then she's like, he's actually going to be out here this weekend. I was like, oh, bet we're having our 5-year anniversary celebration. Let's take a selfie and send it to him. So we took a selfie. He awesome. Like had me. I texted him. I was like, "Hey, I'm Jay, captain of Blackman Run, Phoenix. I hear you're coming out this weekend. We should link up, stuff like that." He texted me on my phone immediately. Like it was just amazing. Like his mom tried to FaceTime me in with him at some point. Like we've already connected. He's going to come out. Like, he's here for a funeral, but like, and he's like, you know, it's going to be a sad event, but I'm going to get to fellowship. And I'm like, yes. And I'm like, and these random connections that happen, and they're happening in cities all over the country now.
Yeah,
like, you know, I go to visit my mom in Apex, and I like the last time I was able, I mean, it's been a while since I was able to do that and not be afraid of COVID, but did that, went out there and linked up with the Raleigh Durham Charlotte chapter, and like, those are my people now. You know, that's how the brotherhood works. It's really amazing.
So can you tell our listeners how they can actually sign up and like figure out where their chapter is located? And also, I know that the Global Running Day was something important to you. And so maybe we can contribute through this podcast episode of, you know, recruiting some people for Black Men Run and having them run on Global Running Day. So can you let our listeners know how they can sign up and when Global Running Day is?
I'm forgetting. It was the
June
first weekend in June.
Yeah, I was gonna say June 1st.
I mean, it's weird for me because I mean, up until I'm nursing some injuries right now, but I run every day, so every day is Global Running Day for me. But
yes,
you can go to the blackmenrun.com to get information about the organization in general, its partners, as well as the various chapters that exist. Again, like North Carolina has 5 different chapters. I think who's next as far as the most? Florida has the next most with 4. But I was looking today. We only have 1 in Arizona and Phoenix. Iowa has 2. I was like, I didn't know. I mean, you'd be surprised, like where we are finding Black people who want to run. You know,
hey, because they need that community, right?
I mean, and that's one of the biggest pieces. Like, you know, that's one of you talk about like where you feel safe, and there is that. I feel like safety oftentimes, to a benefit and to a detriment, come from feelings of familiarity.
Of course.
You know, being around a lot of Black people, which is not an experience I get to have in Phoenix all that much, is just like,
like a hug of connection.
Nice. Yeah. This is just nice. There's just like, there are shared experiences in there that I don't have with a lot of white folks. You know, I have shared experience with white folks, but there's a very specific thing there that is nice, you know. So finding that has been one of the most amazing pieces of it. Finding people that hold me accountable to run. Like, there are Saturday mornings. Summertime, you got to get out early as hell here.
Oh my god.
5:30 or 6. During the summer,
it's 100 degrees in the summer where y'all are.
Yeah, I mean, it is rough. It is rough. And there's times I want to go out, but I'm like, brothers are expecting me, so I got to be out.
Yeah, you show up for them.
Yeah, I show up for them. And like, they were, you know, the previous captain, like, I mean, he retired from his job, and him and his wife have since moved. But like, he was like only 10 years older than me, but like a role model and a father figure to me. Like, with the energy he put towards his life, this organization, the people within it. Like, I looked up to him so much, and it's warms my heart, but I'm seeing people look to me that way now. I mean, I just am gonna take over. All right, I'll schedule the runs, whatever, no big deal. But like, I am a motivating factor. I am actually directly, indirectly, intentionally, unintentionally helping people to hold themselves accountable for their running. You know, I'm driving them to try to be better versions of themselves. At the same time, they're driving me to be a better version of myself. Like, it is just this amazing thing.
Oh, but you're not making a difference anywhere in any community, in any capacity. None at all.
If you call it out, it makes me feel awkward. But
my friend, this has been an incredible conversation. I know I wanted to leave space at the end. Is there anything we didn't cover? Is there anything that you wanted to share that like we didn't touch on? I feel like we covered lots of heartfelt items and just we talked all over the map.
I want to give my kids a plug. Is that okay?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Because when I've made this distinction as I've gotten older. Like, people, you know, when they're like, introduce yourself. Like, I am a financial aid administrator. Notice I'm really talking about my job. I love what it is that I do. I'm proud of what I do. I've been doing it for 20 years now. I just don't know if I'm allowed to talk about my employer or anything like that. And also, what I do is not very exciting. So whatever. But it's not how I'm defined. Like, the coolest thing about me is the fact that I'm a dad. I'm a father to these 2 amazing kids who get on my last motherfucking nerve, but also drive me to be a better person all the time. you know, and I mean, they're not going to listen to this because they don't have that attention span, and because the Encanto soundtrack is playing in the background. But I don't know, like, I think it's so important for me, especially because I dog on these kids. Like when they don't do the right thing once, I'm on the ass. Like I'm an old school Black parent in that way. Like I don't put up with any bullshit. So I'm working hard to make sure I speak positively about them whenever possible, because they're amazing. They give me life. You know, I don't know, as challenging as it was to have a 5 and a 2-year-old in the beginning of a pandemic, stuck at home, not being able to go outside because 145,000 degrees out there. Like,
yep.
They're part of the reason why, like, we not only survive but thrive.
Yes.
They're just amazing kids. And I just wanted to give them a shout out. Being a dad is the best job I've ever had. It is the coolest thing about me. Yeah. And someday, maybe on my deathbed, I'll tell them that. But
not today. Don't do it.
I gotta be on the ass.
No, that's awesome. I love that you chose to end this episode that way. Lindsay, did you have anything else you wanted to share?
No, other than just, I'm so grateful that you could come join us today. I honestly feel so honored that you decided to use your precious time and energy. I know that you expend a lot of it on a lot of other people, but I just appreciate so much that you were able to carve out this time for us today, and to just really share your story and have your voice and your experiences be heard. Because honestly, I really do think that the things that you shared today are going to make a difference. I believe that it will inspire people to like think about what they can do in their immediate communities and maybe look at things through a different lens that they haven't considered already, you know?
Absolutely. Hey, it's a good goal, right?
If I can motivate people to run, maybe I can motivate people to go into their municipality website and see what they can do in the community, volunteer every once in a while. Like, you know.
It's a good goal. It's a good goal.
I love it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Today.
This was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jay. And y'all, please find us on Instagram at What the Fox Podcast, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
And we all sing, everything is gonna be just fine. It's gonna fall into place. The sun is gonna set on your terrible day.